Hello, and welcome to today's webcast entitled AI in Government, What's Delivering Value and How Agencies Can Get Started. I'm Sean McSpaden. I serve as a senior fellow with the Center for Digital Government and with our Center for Public Sector AI. I think we're going to have just a great conversation today over the next 60 minutes. We've got some great speakers talking about their real world experience in implementing this technology for good. And so, again, I think we're really going to learn a lot through our discussion today with our featured speakers. Very pleased to have Vince Hanson, who serves as a Vice President of Public Sector at Naviant, Tim O'Toole, who serves as the Director of Records Management for the Central Florida Expressway Authority, and finally, Shawnene Sharratt, who serves as a Senior Business Analyst with the Transportation Investment Corporation. Team, great to have you with us today. Would love to give each of you an opportunity to introduce yourself. And I'd like to start in reverse order and start with Shawnene. Shawnene, very pleased to have you with us.
Lovely to be here. Thank you very much, Sean. As you mentioned, I'm a senior business analyst. I'm currently the lead for a very large implementation project for the Transportation Investment Corporation. We are a crown corporation for the provincial government of British Columbia in Canada. And we are deploying OnBase as our enterprise content management system. And delighted to be here to share some of that experience. I've worked extensively for the Ministry of Transportation with AI in an entirely different application, in applications out in the field, managing traffic, managing life safety systems in the field, in tunnels and for bridges, those types of things. And now I'm having an adventure implementing AI in the office environment instead of in the field environment. Very wonderful. Nice.
Yeah, great to have you with us, Shawnene. Really look forward to hearing your unique perspective as we move forward in our conversation. Tim, I'd love to turn things over to you.
Sure, yes, hi, thank you. And yes, it's great to be here and hope we have a lot to add for everybody. But I am the Director of Records and Information Management at the Central Florida Expressway Authority here in Orlando, Florida. Given I've been in the business for about 25 plus years and experience in records and information management, and really my focus is more about managing this. So I come at it from more of the governance standpoint when we're talking about AI and all of those facets. So we're also implementing an enterprise-wide, program to obviously drive compliance and transparency. In Florida, we have to deal with many public records and public records laws. So again, that's part of my purview and now why I am here. So also we use OnBase as our document management, content management system, and we are certainly developing a lot with those new AI tools. So glad to be here and can't wait to get started.
Thank you for that, Tim. Again, going to be great to hear your perspective from the great state of Florida. And finally, Vince Hanson. Vince, why don't you introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, thanks, Sean. So I am the practice manager here for public sector at Naviant. I've been implementing different technology solutions for 25 years. Obviously, Shawnene and Tim are two dear friends and customers that we have done a lot of implementations over the years. I have probably been involved in 600 different technology deployments over the last 2 decades. So I think I bring a unique perspective of having been in government agencies, large and small, and have seen the transition of folks working on paper, the metal inbox baskets that we used to use for workflows, and now today, folks utilizing AI. So it's very exciting to have been part of a lot of the transitions over the last couple of decades, but also now seeing how technology is being used to solve problems differently. So really excited to be here.
Vince, it's great to have you with us, and certainly appreciate your on-the-ground experience over the past many years. I know that's going to contribute greatly to our conversation. I'm going to share just a few lead-in comments. Of course, government agencies at all levels, really, we're under constant pressure to keep our government services running smoothly. At the same time, we're having to balance limited staff, complex legacy information systems, and certainly rising expectations. Many of our teams, we're just beginning to explore AI, but it's often unclear how this technology can really fit into our everyday operations to support meaningful operation and progress over time. I'm very pleased that over the next 55 minutes or so, we'll have a chance to hear your insights, best practice advice from the three of you about how agentic AI is now being applied across government operations to support continuous improvement. With that brief lead in, I'd love to just jump right in and give each of you an opportunity to share any opening remarks you might have before we move forward with our discussion. Vince, why don't I start with you?
Yeah, Sean, thank you. I totally agree. I think public sector is facing tremendous pressures like never before. There are huge staffing constraints. I think over the last couple of years, with a lot of DOGE initiatives for reducing headcount, I work with a lot of senior leaders and managers where they're basically like, hey, we've had someone retire and I'm basically just being told that I can't replace the position. So the doing more with less, it really resonates with a lot of the customers that I'm working with. I think there's also rising citizen expectations. I think all of us have these, right? It's our little personalized computer in our pocket. So there's a tendency to think of, I need to get this information, I need to get this answer, I need to submit this request and have an immediate response to it. So there's rising needs for self-service. There's super complex policy environments, and all of these things are really making the AI conversation and automation technologies really necessary to keep pace. I think that these tool sets are really needed for speed and consistency. And really, I would say in almost every meeting, the AI dialogue is being pushed by our customers with them wanting to have a discussion about how can these new tool sets help us with some of the challenges and problems that we have. It's very exciting.
Thank you for that, Vince. Tim or Shawnene, any additional opening remarks before we move into our first poll question? Tim, you're on mute.
Just as I pointed that out in the earlier part, right? Yeah, it'll happen. I apologize, but I just want to, amplify that same that Vince was talking about. And as you pointed out, we are under tremendous pressure to continue to streamline and get faster for whatever it is we have to do for our constituents or our folks, right? So it just, this tool with the AI tools I think are going to be very helpful, and you can see the potential. And again, alluding to it, we used to go from an old paper system now to an electronic system. Who knows where we'll be in another couple of years, right? So being an early adopter, we like where we're headed. So I can't wait to see the future and how it continues to grow.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that, Tim. And Shawnene?
I think the level that I'd like to add, it is definitely timeliness. For us, it's very much about construction. We build capital assets, we build tunnels, we build bridges, roads, and it's rapid pace. We have to be able to respond quickly. We have to be able to give information to different consumers for different reasons. And we have a broad consumer base for the information that we have in our repositories. The ability to put our hands on the right information for the right people at the right time is critical. And AI is a big help in that regard.
Yeah, just some great insights from the three of you to lead off. I know in my own experience, 28 years in Oregon state government, we're literally drowning in data and records. Many of them are unclassified, certainly structured and unstructured information. Many of us have on a long-standing basis used our email system as our records management system of records, so to speak. Not a good situation. And so talking about these modern tools, modern approaches, and now the benefit that could come from AI, I think is just going to be great for our audience to hear from the three of you. With that said, let's move to our first poll question. So audience members, we would love to find out more about where all of you are in your journey. So certainly we're talking here about where your organization is today in adopting AI to support operations and service delivery. We've given you 5 response options here, and while you're recording your responses, we'll have a brief conversation. Team, for organizations that are still early in the exploration phase of AI, now generative AI just in the last year or two, and hitting us now and or in the year or two to come, these agentic AI tools and systems, what's one practical first step that you've seen agencies take that actually leads to meaningful progress rather than forcing them to get stuck in that analysis paralysis? Tim, I'd like to start with you.
Sure. The first thing that I've noticed, again, since we've started to roll out, and I guess we use one of our tools, right, is Copilot. And because we live in the Microsoft world, we are all using that. But many of the different departments, what I always say in many agencies, right, all of our records seem to be siloed. Our information seems to be siloed. I do say AI, I think, is just going to make it electronically siloed. But what we are running into is you're starting to see a lot more collaborative talks, right? Because usually there is 1 or 2 folks within our agencies that have a good grasp on this and a good handle on it, or they were in charge of the processes. So now learning how to harness that and actually collaborating with others in other departments to say, how are you using that tool? I want it to do this. Help me get there. So I am just finding in our agency, and when I talk to some other colleagues, that the collaborative talks are starting to happen, which typically didn't happen in the past.
Very good. Thank you for that, Tim. And Shawnene, what are your thoughts on some practical steps to lead to meaningful progress?
So we're in early stages of planning. So this is a really apt question because we've had to solve some early issues around our user base. A large volume of our users are engineers. These are the people that are building these assets. Their fear is safety. Their fear is automating things that could potentially leave gaps or expose people to misinformation. And because we're very, public safety conscious, that's a huge fear for them. For us, it was about picking some, the term low-hanging fruit, some easy wins. And there are things that everybody hates doing that take a lot of time. It takes a lot of time just to be an employee. Meeting minutes and notes. We started with small things that weren't necessarily related to the business we're in, but just related to being an employee. Being in a meeting, somebody's got to take meeting notes. Somebody's got to publish them. Somebody's got to make sure that they're legible and readable. So we started with some of the corporate AI solutions that Tim brought up. For example, our provincial government is a Microsoft shop. So for all of our office applications, we started to teach our employees how to use those simple AI tools that are very reliable and have been well vetted and well tested as a learning ground for them so that they could have some successes and that they get a more positive experience with AI. Another place for us that was a really big win is learning to use these tools to improve the content. So our agency is very multicultural. We have a lot of people for whom English is not their first language. And producing business content is intimidating for them and challenging for them, and it takes a lot of time. And being able to show them how generative AI can help with them with that task And having a positive experience in that regard for our employees was a huge win. So having our provincial information management technology supports in place and training for how to use the generative AI tools has been super helpful for us in terms of introducing concepts around agentic AI for our more business specific workflows and content management.
You know, Shawnene, I really appreciate your response there and that focus on, hey, start small, focus the application of these new and emerging technologies on yourself first, test them out, validate them, gain trust. So just some great thoughts for our audience to take away in their own environment. Vince, in the interest of time, I'm going to move forward to our poll results, and I'll give you the first shot at commenting on where our audience stands. So we asked, where's your organization today in adopting AI to support operations and service delivery? It looks like nearly a majority are exploring use cases and building awareness. We've got some smaller pockets that are actively deploying AI and or have some pilots or proofs of concept underway. Any surprises here in the results from our poll, Vince?
No, I think folks are really at different stages of understanding, right? Maybe talking to peers about what successes look like for them. Some of them are testing the waters with some of the built-in tools that we have available on our desktops. And then others are really exploring, right? Like, how do I integrate this into my business process and start taking some of that manual task and time and having the system do that while I can do more of the decisioning. So I'm not surprised to see this at all.
Very good, very good. Tim or Shawnene, any quick observations before we move forward?
Yeah. No,
all right,
we're good.
I think we're good. We'll continue to move the conversation along. Vince, I'm going to turn back to you. And you know, to get us started with our discussion today, you know, you and your teams, you work with a lot of state and local government organizations around the nation and in Canada. When you talk with agencies today, where are you seeing real measurable value from AI? Not just pilots, but production use. And what distinguishes those efforts from the ones that stall out?
Yeah, this question makes me think about one of my larger government customers where we are in a second year of a major enterprise deployment. And I think that one of the keys to their success was in the planning phase of their project. And when I say planning, I'm not just talking about gathering preliminary, you know, current state use case information and then identifying the challenges and opportunities. What this customer did is they created a communications plan, what the goals of the project were. They got all the stakeholders together. They created a regular cadence of meetings where honest feedback was shared. They had sessions and talked with people about what they were worried about relating to the project. Then as those meetings continued to be held, what they really did was they talked with those stakeholders about what needed to be addressed either now in the current phases of the project or in future phases as they expanded across different departments. So this led to some very valuable lessons for each one of those new departments in making some small changes that were going to help them in the next phases. So I really like this kind of continuous improvement that helped them prioritize and validate the next steps in their process and how it was really going to help all of the stakeholders in the project. So I would say, like, planning and communication is so key because, you know, there aren't a lot of expertise in this area. It's not like there's been hundreds and hundreds of deployments of AI. It's very new to a lot of people. And so that communication is key to get people to feel comfortable.
Thank you for setting the stage for us, Vince. I want to keep the pace moving, and I'm going to move to my next question for Tim and Shawnene. You know, as one or both of you mentioned a lot of our operational data lives in silos. I think, Tim, that was your phrase. Cylinders of excellence is another way to put it. Documents, case files, having to deal with legacy content management systems, maybe even email. How can agencies or how have your agencies tried to best use AI and these modern content management platforms to unlock that information and turn it into actionable insights? Tim, why don't we start with you, and then we'll go to Shawnene.
Okay, and this is a great one, because literally last week we were working on this approach, right, to almost turn the tool loose across our repositories. Not only do, as many agencies, we have many documents and information siloed in many different places, but we're working on building an agent that will be able to crawl through, find us where our duplicates are, find us where our records are, our non-records, and then have the ability to apply or classify and apply those labels to them, which right now I look at that as an overwhelming aspect that I have to do and sit there and look at these things almost one by one manually, or, so many different ways. So seeing this, again, as Vince pointed out, a significant amount of fact gathering, but now we're in the process of going, okay, we've got the tool, let's start feeding it. And we're starting to work on that now. And that's going to be a great project. I'm super excited for this one.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Tim. And Shawnene, what are your thoughts?
Didn't click that button fast enough. Our experience has been slightly different. For our organization, when we first planned for the implementation of OnBase, our expectation and our project plan was that we would use OnBase as our single repository for all of our content, which was an overwhelming concept for our organization. We've got, not only do we have those folks that are specialists in the business that we're in of building capital assets and transportation infrastructure, but we've also got the core business units that keep our business alive, like HR and finance, all of our executive. So everybody has content and everybody has software applications that specialize in managing that content and the data that's related to it. And those specialized applications, we call them silos because we think of them in terms of data and information. But to a business user, to the people in our organization, those are critical tools. And they were extremely intimidated about what's going to happen. I use these tools. They have a lot of functions and features that I need that are specialized to my job. And now you're going to move me to a different platform so that all my documents are in the same place, or do I have to duplicate or copies? Really, really good points. The beauty of AI for us is that solved the problem. We're allowed to have silos because AI reaches into those silos. Now we've got these specialized tools, they can live on. HR can use their software. Finance can use the corporate finance systems. Our project controls teams can use all their specialized scheduling software. I mean, this is massive specialized software for linear project planning. It doesn't live in a content repository. SharePoint shouldn't be where your TILO schedules live. So they can leave their data where their data belongs, in the tool sets that are built to support what they have to do in their job. And we can use AI to retrieve the data that we need to turn into information for the people that need that information. And AI is smart enough to help us not only retrieve the data, but to wrap it in the appropriate context to turn it into information. And that was a huge relief for our organization because they were really afraid of our project until they understood that there was a way to still leave them working in the tools that they're familiar with and that they have procured specifically for that purpose.
Very good. Shawnene and Tim, really appreciate your on the ground experience here, in the trenches with how these tools can be used, to help our internal organizations be more efficient and effective. And at the same time, alleviate some of those fears about losing control of the core systems they use for their everyday work. So just great insights. Want to keep things moving forward. Vince, I want to turn back to you. The abstract, it highlights AI supporting continuous process improvement. Would love it if you could give a concrete example on where AI helped reduce handoffs or bottlenecks in the government agency workflow. What changed operationally for your customer as they began to implement these kinds of capabilities?
Yeah, thanks, Sean. We had a customer approach us last year, large county government, and their main challenge was not originally a technology one. It was a challenge around a retiring workforce. And imagine you have 20+ year employees who have tremendous knowledge of the operation. And as these folks retire and they bring new folks in, there's a huge ramp up time in learning the position and becoming experts. This results in a lot of mistakes, which causes all sorts of havoc in their actual day-to-day business process. And in turn, this causes significant turmoil with many of the new staff members, and then they decide to leave within 6 months. And so they're stuck in kind of this continuous cycle when many times there's not enough people to do the work. So this particular use case was in the courts. The group of users, for lack of a better phrase, were doing intake, or what I would call court docketing, with their court case management system. And the court case management system has a potential of 1,400 different docket codes. So imagine us four are starting a new job today, and our job is to learn a business process where we need to become experts in identifying 1,400 different docket codes that pretty much build the workflow of what has to happen relating to the case. So we actually implemented an AI tool, a local language model, to handle the intake process and automate the docket code entry. During the pilot, we were able to get about 90% accuracy for their highest docket code utilizing this language model. The most interesting concept that I think emerged from utilizing this tool and looking at their business process is that they made a decision that they didn't want the AI tool to do the work on the front end. They actually wanted their users to continue to process the work. But then they wanted to use the AI tool to become the QA for the process. So if there was a mistake, they now wanted to implement human in the loop and have it become a learning opportunity for the users so that they could get better at their job. So a training opportunity for them. No one's losing their jobs, but using AI to do their job better. Perfect example of how you can use technology along with humans side by side. And it was a big win for their team. And I learned so much about thinking outside the box as it relates to utilizing the technology and how it can be implemented in a business process.
Thank you for that, Vince. Vince, I want to keep things moving. I think you may have some additional information you want to share with the audience here in just a moment, but kind of a lead into that portion of our conversation. How are you seeing agentic AI and more autonomous capabilities play a role in coordinating work across systems? Much as Shawnene mentioned in her environment, especially when we're dealing with these legacy platforms, these siloed data sets and data stores.
Yeah, so I would say let's talk about the cost structure in servicing constituent requests as we kind of go into this topic, right? I'll go least expensive to most expensive. Number one, right? Self-service. If you have a good public website, easy navigation, constituents are able to find what they need. Constituent can submit a request. The cost of service is around $1. But if they can't find what they need and now they need to make a phone call to the agency, the cost of service can go up to $5. And then if you have an automated phone system and a long wait time, and they get frustrated and they hang up and they decide, you know what, I'm just going to jump in my car and I'm going to go down to the office, the cost of service goes up to $10 or more. So let's talk about how these tools can potentially be used to kind of assist with that service of constituents and really put some efficiency gain in there. I'm going to do this. I'm going to share my screen here on my side. Let me know if you can see that on your side. Can you see it okay, Sean?
I can.
Yeah. So I'm going to talk about something near and dear to my heart, which is agenda processing. I think every local city, county government goes through an agenda process. This is actually part of open government, right? Where someone who lives in the constituent area can go to the local county website. They can do a search. They can pull up information about meetings. They can look at agenda items. They can look at supporting documentation. They can see what's been voted on. All of this information is right available at their fingertips. And actually, Orange County does a fantastic job of presenting this information. I can go to this e-agenda area and I can search for specific topics, or I can actually look at every single meeting. Like, let's say I want to go back to last October, and I can pull up specific information. This particular website also allows you to do some searches where you can look inside of the individual PDF documents. But it works very differently than what could be presented if there was maybe an AI layer on top of it. So for example, instead of me having to know some information about when the meeting happened and where the meeting was and what I'm specifically looking for, what if I could just ask questions just like you and I are talking, and instead of having to go search inside of the document, it actually gave me the answer and then let me see the documents where it found that information, right? Kind of that audit process that's going to be very important for folks that are implementing AI. So that's what I have here on the screen. This is an agent that has been configured to look at all of those related agenda and meeting documents. And what I'm going to do in natural language is I'm going to ask it a couple of questions, right? Like, I'm going to say, hey, I want to know what agency was involved in the setup of these EV stations. And so I'm going to do a quick search here. And what's going to happen is it's going to provide a summary of this. And hopefully I don't need to log out and log back in, but that might be the case. Yeah, so it says, what agency is involved in the review of each EV charging stations? And it says it's the Northeast Ohio Area-Wide Coordinating Agency. And what I can do here is I can actually click on this link, and now it'll show me the actual document where it pulled that information from me. So think about how powerful this is. We have the ability to ask real life questions. It can go search a repository of information, provide the answer back, and then give you the supporting documents of where that information came. But there's other things that you have the ability to do as well. Like, let's say, for example, English is not your first language. And I think this may have been mentioned just a moment ago by Tim or Shawnene. But I'm going to do another search here. And I live in Florida, so I'm going to put this in Spanish because we have a lot of Spanish speakers here in this. And when I put that question in Spanish, not only does it go and search a repository and find the answer, but it actually provides the context back to me in Spanish so that I have a good understanding of what that is. So we've been utilizing this tool for all sorts of applications with this type of context, looking at forms that have been submitted to a government agency that are in different languages, being able to identify what those look like. And like the results are amazing. So really, I think the sky's the limit of how you could potentially apply this, either in an agentic process where it's going and finding the answer and presenting it back to a government employee and an agency employee where they need to do a review of a process, or allowing this to be integrated into self-service for the constituent to give better efficiency in providing some type of service to them.
Very good, very good. Just some really important capabilities, transcription and translation, sometimes real-time translation of meetings and content, just such an important set of capabilities for those that we're here to serve. So thank you for that, Vince. We have gotten some great questions from our audience. I'd love to pose one of them to Shawnene and Tim first. It's a question of data security. So, of course, everybody in public service concerned with data security and privacy would love to get your initial take on how you're dealing with that issue with the modern content management solutions you've deployed, and how are you and your teams working to better control your data when utilizing AI? Shawnene, let's start with you.
It's a very interesting question, and it's one that has been most challenging for our project. Our field of architectural engineering and construction, in that sector, the data in our repositories is very specific to the construction sector. And we're talking industrial construction, excuse me. So for us to find existing LLMs or language models that work for our sector, without exposing our data, our private data, to public, what they call data lakes. So making sure that we have enough learning for our artificial intelligence agents to understand the data that lives in our documents is challenging when we are public sector and we can't just chuck all our documents into a big private sector data lake so that all of this lovely artificial intelligence can learn from our data, understand our data, and help us use it more productively. I think that's been our very biggest challenge. And the big concern in government is, how do we make sure that we are doing our due diligence with the public's data and still protecting privacy appropriately? And we haven't necessarily solved the whole problem, but what we are finding is that there are experts in the field out there to help you with it. We are very fortunate to be working with Vince and his team at Naviant. They solve this problem for a lot of government agencies, and they understand the concerns that a public agency has in this regard.
Very good, very good. I appreciate those insights from your experience there in Canada. Tim, how are you and your team dealing with this issue?
And much to like Shawnene's point is, from our content management system, right? I use the term, it's easy, because I can create visions and revisions and make those publicly facing and say, here you go, you need a copy of my, again, we build roadways, right? Some ITS structures and bridges. Those are all confidential and exempt. However, our roadway plans are not. So we're able to kind of siphon that off and say, here's the public face, and you can see these roadway plans all day long. The other ones sit behind that wall and say, if you're going to need these exempt or confidential plans, you do need to submit some sort of form or authorization. So we have a controlled system within using OnBase to do that. Going to the other side of it with the AI tools and all of the other content that sits in many of our areas, that's the quintessential problem that everybody's facing. We're dealing with it by applying it, teaching it, right, through retention labels and sensitivity labels to say, hey, this material contains a social security number, or this contains an IP address. In the state of Florida, we have over 15 exemptions that apply to our public records law. So to say that we get them all is tough. And then you have to deal with any federal statutes that we have to deal with. So it's just, again, it's an ongoing process, but trying to teach the model that and give it some example documents to help it learn. But in the end, no matter how much we automate, we need one of us humans to be there in that review process just to make sure that it is accurate, it is right, and we're being safe and secure, protecting not only the agency's assets, but again, exposing any liabilities to you, the consumer. So,
and Tim, I appreciate that that mention of the need for human in the loop, human in the lead. For many of these new use cases, at minimum, until we establish some level of confidence and trust in these solutions. So, just some great advice. I'm going to keep things moving forward. We have still quite a bit of content to share. Shawnene, I'm going to turn back to you. From your experience in implementing content management, how does AI enhance or change the value proposition of platforms like OnBase in managing your records and workflows?
So I was putting some thought into this as I was listening to the earlier discussions here. I think I spoke a little bit to the fact that we are really fond of generative AI in our organization, because when you're in public sector, there are many of your employees for whom English is not their first language. So for us in the ministry, our agency is not necessarily an agency that works directly with our constituents or our public. But our employees often do not speak English as their first language. And these are the people that are producing all of our work procedure manuals. They are producing all of our warranty documentation. They're producing all of the planning documents for these large capital projects. And making sure that that documentation is quality documentation has always been a challenge. For us, generative AI has been a godsend. And now our employees can feel comfortable. Many of them were intimidated by their lack of ability to write business content in English. And now they're not afraid to try. That's been a huge win for us. Predictive AI has been another. We're multi-billion-dollar projects. Understanding the right delivery models for these projects is huge for our taxpayers, because we can save massive amounts of tax dollars when we understand what works well and where we can improve on things. So for us, predictive AI, looking at our historical data, being able to pull that historical data performance metrics and KPI information out of unstructured data, which is where it often lives, and put it in the hands of the people that can say, you know what, that procurement model works great for a SkyTrain. That's what we're going to do in the future. And then again, for us with agentic AI, very much about workflows. We're fortunate because we work with engineers and architects. And so they're not afraid of control systems. They're not afraid of letting a machine think about things. We've been doing that in industrial control systems for decades. So they're not afraid of AI in terms of control. But where we struggle is, where do we put that control in their hands? For us, it's about content classification. So we've got folks who need to consume our content right away to build something. And they have a different criteria for searching for that information and finding it, then folks who are going to be on the O&M side of things, once we hand that asset off, now we've got bridge constructors, road maintenance contractors, they have a different way of searching and they need to find different information. So how do we classify these documents to meet everybody's needs? In the old day, it was a pain in the butt, quite frankly, because you had to figure out how everybody wants to search for something and make sure that it was tagged appropriately, right? Classified appropriately so that everybody could find it. And these big disparate user groups had entirely different requirements for searching. Now with agentic AI, we can classify documents for everybody's needs and everybody's happy. Vince mentioned codification. And in our world, that's huge. And our engineers speak in acronyms that are very familiar to them and nobody else understands a word they just said. But that's how they search for things. Now with agentic AI, they can search their way. We don't have to make them use the whole word anymore. They can use their codification and their classification schemes. They can search for their documents and find them. And the poor old guy that has to go and find the old archives, that guy can search for his documents the way he needs to search for them. So for us, agentic AI and searching and classification was a huge win. Our workflows, very much about content approvals. We approve hundreds of thousands of engineering drawings. We have to understand which drawings, which packages of drawings need to be in whose hands. Approvals and workflow and dissemination of those documents is huge in terms of agentic AI for us. And that is first on our list for workflow improvement. So content classification is second on the list. First for us is making sure that our content review and approval workflows for those engineering drawings are automated. And that will save us huge volumes of time. Just making sure that reviewers understand when there's something that they need to look at, approvers understand when there's something they need to look at, and it's right there in their digital inbox and all packaged up nicely for them.
Thank you, Shawnene, for describing those nuances in a large organization and understanding that it's important not only to think about our customers, meet them where they are, but also meet our users where they are and be able to appropriately segment our users and in order to better understand their unique needs. We have some limited time, so I'm going to keep things moving forward. I'm going to skip beyond a second poll question that we had planned and instead move back to you, Tim, to talk a little bit about this issue of introducing AI into operational workflows. You mentioned a bit about the need for a human in the loop, this interplay. What kind of governance structures have you and your organization put in place to ensure accountability and trust, especially when you're beginning to try to automate these decisions or actions using AI?
Sure. One of the first steps we've done, again, embracing the AI technology of this, is we've actually taken our policies and procedures and we've actually put them against, self-audited and maturity models that we have for basically across the agency. So each department, right? So we're taking folks' documented processes, putting them in here and telling us, asking it to compare where are our weaknesses, where are our strengths, and obviously where are the gaps. Then the next phase, and this is what we've just started doing, which is fantastic because it is them helping us to produce a great document, and it'll tell me, hey, where are my gaps? You have a gap in X. So it's now giving us a starting point to where we can start to make more automated processes, but still turn around and say, okay, Tim, this is where you sit in this process. As it generates the output, you're going to look at the review and give it the QA and tell us yes or no, or on to the next step. So it's been a great little exercise, and we're just continuing to do that for each department as we go. with also keeping in mind, we're trying to do this agency-wide, right? So what the accounting department does may affect HR, may affect procurement, our engineering, construction. So with that, mindset, we're really moving forward. So it's a great little fun exercise.
Certainly, governance, I wouldn't describe as fun, but at the same time, completely necessary, essential to effective implementation, in particular, meeting the specific needs of your divisions or departments and the organization as a whole. Vince, I'm going to turn back to you and ask you about getting started with some high-value use cases for agencies that are resource constrained, and certainly I'm sure that describes most of our audience today. Where have you seen the fastest time to value when combining AI with workflow automation? Perhaps maybe just off the top of your head, 30 seconds or less, the first 2 to 3 use cases you'd recommend our audience members start with.
Yeah, I think constituent requests is a great place to start. Anything relating to intake, invoice processing is one that pops into mind. It's very transactional. It has a very high volume. It's a great area for automation. Tim is an expert on public records. We've implemented some public records request solutions for him, but I think automated redactions. I've seen agencies where they have attorneys reviewing a 1,000-page document and manually removing PII from the records is a great one. And then applications and renewals for large agencies, this can be a huge time saver through automation. So it really just look for those large transactional, repeatable processes. Those are all probably a great place to start from a discovery perspective. And we've included this visual heat map to show some of those common areas that we see for automation success.
Thank you for that, Vince. I'm going to turn back to Tim and Shawnene just very briefly. Looking ahead in your own organizations, how do you see agentic AI reshaping your operations over the next couple of years? And for our audience members, what recommendation would you give them on what they should be doing now to prepare for that kind of shift in their own organizations? Why don't we start with you, Shawnene, just very briefly?
So for us, the big focus, and I really appreciated this, was something that I learned from Vince. We spend an awful lot of time reviewing engineering drawings. And the biggest win for us is that there are many comparison tools out there. We go and we look for software that can do these reviews for deltas, because revisions. Tim mentioned revision after revision after revision. Understanding what you need to review and what you don't need to review. Right now, they review everything. AI can help them understand where there's a delta and focus their attention on what it is they need to review. And so for us, we're engaging our engineers to understand, how can we help you focus? Where are you confident that if we tell you this is all you have to look at, you feel confident that that's all you have to look at? And that's what we're starting with, so that they realize a gain. And the rest will be a lot easier once they have that trust and they see that value. And for them, that's the biggest value win.
Thank you, Shawnene. Tim?
Yeah, and I would go in that same vein. It's just doing the exercise that we were doing and pointing out the gaps and where the processes can be streamlined. We're eliminating some of those bottlenecks. We're able to maybe break down some of those walls from the folks that have been in their positions for 30 years, and that's the way we've always done it. But to Shawnene's point, we're giving you confidence that it's going to help you, not necessarily replace you, right? So that's what we're seeing the big benefit right now. And again, it's starting all of those talks, and people are very, it's been a lot more positive than I thought. So it's been a unique side for us.
Very good. Very good. Thank you, Tim. Vince, any thoughts from your perspective? Again, you work with a lot of state and local government education organizations around the country. What do you see coming at these kinds of organizations in the next 2 to 3 years where agentic AI is concerned?
Yeah, I think, this reminds me of how old I am, Sean, because when I was in college, which was not yesterday, I was a runner and a clerk in a law firm, and my wife was as well, and she took my job. That's how we met, but that's a different story. But my primary job was to deliver legal documents to the various courthouses across 2 counties. And so fast forward to today, that job doesn't exist anymore. And actually, I worked in the legal tech arena selling e-filing solutions that replaced that job, that allows law offices to now electronically submit those legal documents to the court. So, I think that, as we start learning about tenured 20-year government employees retiring, new staff taking those jobs and struggling, and the agencies struggling to put people in those seats, we're going to have to really start investing in all of us, right? Becoming experts in AI and really focusing on what that transition is going to be inside of those agencies. Those pressures aren't going to go away. We're going to have to continue to do more with less. And I think, these AI tool sets can be an innovation to help those agencies better serve their mission and serve those constituents.
Thank you, Vance. Well, team, we're very close to the end of our time together today. I want to give each of you, though, an opportunity to share any parting thoughts, any key takeaways you'd like to leave our audience with before we close today. I want to start with you, Shawnene. 30 to 45 seconds or so. What are the key takeaways you'd like to leave folks with?
I think the implementation of AI is different for every business. Don't be afraid to imagine how it might improve your business. It won't necessarily be the same for everybody.
And
all right.
I can agree to that as well. And I will tell you, 6 months ago, I might have been the person to be like, I don't want anything to do with this stuff. And now I'm like, okay, I'm ready. Let's go. Learn what you can and get others in your agencies that are involved with it and get with it. It's a game changer. And if you can convince me, we can convince anybody. It'll work. It's going to be good for everybody.
Yeah, Tim and Shawnene, thank you so much for those remarks. Bottom line, it's so important for not just our technical staff, but our entire workforce to be in a position where they understand the capabilities of these new tools so that they can begin to form or frame in their own mind how they can apply these tools to do their job better, to serve their customers better, et cetera. They're the ones who are going to have the primary use cases that are going to make a difference in our business operations. Certainly not to discount the importance of our technical staff, but those that are closest to those we serve, they really need to understand this brave new world that we all find ourselves in. So really appreciate your thoughts. Vince, I'm going to give you the last word here. What are your parting thoughts or recap items you'd like to leave the audience with?
Yeah, we put together this kind of key takeaways slide that you're seeing on the screen here. And I really love the first one, right? Start with the process, not the technology. I think every meeting I have, it starts with understanding the business process. Who are the users? What are the use cases? What is working well? And what is a challenge? And I think if you start there with gathering kind of the baseline, I think the technology can come thereafter. Shawnene said something that's near and dear to my heart. I had a manager. He used to say this Japanese proverb, which is called shoshin, which means think like a beginner. And after all the years of providing technology solutions, I find myself now taking a step back and saying, okay, don't solve this the way you used to. Think about the new tool set and how could we make this even better than we could last week or last year or 5 years ago. So, super excited for kind of where we can go next with automating these processes for our government customers.
Thank you for that, Vince. Well, to the three of you, just been a great conversation today. I've learned a lot from your experiences. Really appreciate you sharing your insights and best practice advice with our audience today. I'd also like to thank Naviant for making it possible to have this important webcast discussion today. And finally, to all of you, our audience members, thank you so much for joining us. We know you have choices, you have some scarce time. We appreciate you spending it with us today. And also, we look forward to seeing you all very soon at another government technology event in the near future. With that, I want to wish everyone a great rest of your day. And Vince, Tim, Shawnene, just a great pleasure to talk with you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.